Hi, my name is Susan Karczewski and I am the owner of Purr-fectly Unique Design Studio and Boutique in Pierceton, Indiana, and I'm here today to teach you my third wire wrapping tutorial on how to make your own heavy-duty clasp to finish your bracelets and necklaces. So let's get started. For this lesson you will need a pair of needle nose pliers, wire cutters, wire. I'm using 16 gauge. And here's a roll of 20 gauge to show you the difference in the gauges of the wire and the thickness. I wouldn't go any less than 20 gauge for a strong clasp. And a measuring tape. Okay, to begin this project, we will take our wire and we'll cut off 5 inches. Okay. This is 16 gauge wire and it will make a very thick, heavy-duty clasp. So then we're going to take the wire and we're going to bend it. The one side should come about to the middle of the wire that's left. It looks like a paper clip kind of with a tail. But it's a little over half that you go. And then you take your pliers and about a 1/4 inch up here from this end, we're going to make our bend to make our loop. Okay. And so then we make our loop. When you make a loop, you just gradually turn the wire with your pliers gently until I get about here. And then I'm going to use my thumb to help this along to make it round. So it'll look like that. We still have our end here. You have to have a little tail for this to work. And then we're going to go to this top of the wire where we folded it over. And we're going to make it a little bit more narrower. Okay, so it's approximately, I'd say 1/8 of an inch in width. And so it would look like this at this point. You have your one end that's going to be a little longer than your loop. Then we cut the length of the hook in half and we're going to bend this completely over. Okay. It looks like this at this point. And at the very end we just pinch that a little bit together more. And I do this fancy little thing at the end to lift this up so that our clasp actually has a little loop at the end so it will not come off of your necklace easily. That's a little bit more support there. So now we have to finish this. There's different ways you could finish it. You can make a loop at this end if you want it more decorative, or you could cut it off flush. But first we have to finish the loop off. So we'll actually bend this around the hook. Keep bending it. With your pliers. You might have to move it a couple ways so you can get in there. And then you're going to tuck your wire in at the bottom. It's just simply so it's not sharp. You push it right down on the end. You can take your finger and feel that it's not sharp, and you know you've done a good job of tucking your wire in. So it's looking like a hook now. We're just going to straighten out this part here and make sure it's nice and round and even. And so there's our loop, but we're not done yet. This you can even make a loop also with a decorative coil if you'd like, but I'm going to cut it off flush. So we're going to take our wire cutters, and you always cut with your wire cutters at the flat end so that the piece of wire will go down onto the table that you're working on or work surface. So we're going to cut that off. Let's get in there a little bit more. Cut that off, and you can either take a file and file this off later, or a Dremel with a rubber wheel will also smooth that off if you'd like. And then what I do, this is another way of covering that little edge up, is I take my loop at the very end and I move it over so it's exactly vertical with the hook. So you should have a nice round loop at the bottom and a hook at the top. So there's our heavy duty hook, and this is very heavy duty. So now we're going to go to making our loop. The other part of the hook is the eye closure. So for that, I am going to cut off 4 inches. We don't need as much wire. We're going to cut off 4 inches here. And we're going to do very similar to what we did with the hook. We're going to take the wire and bend it again, not quite in half. So you have one side longer than the other. Because again, we're going to have a little bit over when we make the loop. So we're going to come over here and start rounding this side. Okay. Making this round now, just kind of round the top so it's nice and round. And then we're going to take this one side here, kind of looks like a little X here, and we're going to take this and start going around to finish it off, maybe 1 or 2 times, and then we'll tuck that wire in, turn it over. Take your wire cutters again, be flush, cut it off, and tuck this in. There's our loop. This goes into this like this, but now we need another loop to attach to the jump ring or directly to the necklace. So now I'm going to make another right angle to make a loop. And we're going to slowly turn this wire into a circle. But this time, we're going to cut the end of the wire flush right up here and butt up against it. That's why I like to use the 16 gauge wire. You can either solder that, but 16 gauge wire is really heavy, so most likely will stay in the position when you get done. So we're going to go right up to the coil. Cut this piece off, and we're going to take the end and tuck it into the coil just like that. So there is our end closure. It goes into the hook like this, and if you practice this, you can use this on all of your bracelets or necklaces. And I'm going to show you one that I did and variated a little bit by making a coil instead of this round loop. So you could variate this method, but again, I have the very strong clasp here. And I used copper wire for this necklace. But same idea with the hook and the eye closure. And then I used the same method on a bracelet that I made out of wire, where I have the hook, but I used it directly into my end of my bracelet side. It goes like that. And it's very strong, and I used 16 gauge wire. And there's your finished clasp. What you've just seen was my tutorial on how to make a wire wrap clasp. My name is Susan Karczewski, and I look forward to teaching you in the future. Thank you.